right. Well, people are here, so say hi in the chat room if you're joining us. I see it says 74 so far, so that's awesome. Welcome, everyone. So,
hi, everybody.
With Webinar Jam here, the chat box is here in the side, and you can type in your message down below. So say hi, tell us where you're from, if you're homeschooling or not, how many kids, ages, let's get to know one another. And you can see when you're typing your message down there, there's a little dialog box, and that just types up your message with a normal box like this. And then you can also hit that little dialog box and choose question, and then that turns your little dialogue red, so your question stands out, so we can make sure we go through and find all the questions. All right, North Carolina, Paris.
Wow.
Homeschooling, your last one at the tail end of your journey. That's awesome. Minnesota, California. Awesome. So welcome, everyone. I'm Misty Winkler from Simplified Organization, and I like to talk planning, so I do with other people. Try to get all kinds of people to come talk planning with me. So today I'm with Amy Roberts. And Amy, do you want to give us a brief introduction about you and your family?
Sure. My name's Amy Roberts, and I blog at raisingarrows.net. And I'm pregnant with number 10. I have an 18-year-old all the way down to a 1-year-old. And so we are a busy homeschooling family, and planning in our house looks a lot different because of the size of the family, and then a lot because of my personality too. So we'll be getting into that during the session.
Yeah. All right. So what are the age ranges of your kids?
18 all the way down to 1.
All the way down to in utero. Awesome. Yeah, and you've been homeschooling the whole time, right?
Yes. We started out homeschooling, and we've stayed the course and really, really enjoy it.
That's awesome. Yeah. My husband and I were both homeschooled starting from the very beginning. So we're taking it to the next level. And actually, I just realized I don't have my little laptop plugged in, and it says, "Oh, you have low battery." So, so I'm gonna throw it to you for a minute and go grab my charging cord. I really loved your recent blog post about how we think about our life mattering, and that the metaphor of going through mothering seasons, how you realized that was not helping you and what you changed to. If you wanted to talk about that, I would just love to hear more about that.
Yeah, sure. I had somebody tell me, when this season is over, you can do X, Y, Z. And I just found that extremely discouraging, because I've been in this season for 18 years, and I probably have another 18 or more left. And so to tell me that this is just a season was sort of discouraging, and I felt like I was never going to get past that season. And everybody was telling me all these things that were going to happen once I was out of that season. And all I could think about was, I'm not ever going to be out of this season. And so I really had to find a different way to see this. It couldn't be a season that ends, soon, or, in a few years, because if I live like that, I'm just living for, I'm going to survive this moment in time, and then my life can start once I'm past this season. And instead, I felt like I really needed to see this as a journey or a voyage where I'm on it and I'm living it right now. Instead of waiting to start my life, this is my life. And when you're on a voyage, sometimes the sea is rough, sometimes it's calm, sometimes you're taking a break, and sometimes you're rowing with all your might. And I needed to see it that way instead of a season that was so discouraging, because I thought, I'm never going to get past this. And that's just not, I don't know, that's not a good thing for a mom to feel like where she's at is not her real life.
Yeah, that reminds me of the C.S. Lewis quote. It's something like, We need to stop thinking about the interruptions that come in as an interruption to our real life and realize those interactions are our real life. And it helps fight that discontent, which is so easy to creep in.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and the metaphors that we use to think about our life matter so much. And so I think just even realizing that the metaphor you've been told or been using is becoming a source of discouragement, and finding a way to change that metaphor, it matters a lot and can help that mindset attitude shift a lot.
Yeah, it may not matter to someone else whether it's called a season or called a voyage or whatever, but to me, it mattered a lot.
Close that door. Yes, so people are saying they love that analogy. So, yes. Yeah, and so if you have questions as we go along, feel free to use the chat box to ask the questions. And if you can change from the dialogue box to the little question mark to ask your question, that makes sure we see it and won't miss it. So, what does planning look like for you, Amy?
Oh, it's looked like different things over the years. For a long time, I was able to do like our homeschool planning every Sunday night. I would sit down and plan through the next week. I'm not a long range planner. I do a little bit at a time, about a week at a time. And then some things we have on autopilot. So it's never planned in our homeschool per se. Our daily life is on a routine, and it starts here and we go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And if we get off track, we either pick back up where we left off or we move on down to the, something logical. I don't have any time frames with it because we live a pretty fluid, spontaneous life. My husband works a very flexible job. And so that has made it where our life has to kind of be flexible. But I still wanted to have a routine because kids thrive knowing, what's next. Moms thrive knowing what's next. And so my planning, that's kind of one of those things where, the routine is set. And sometimes we have things that completely throw us off track, like morning sickness. During the time of morning sickness, we had kind of a routine, but it looked very different. And it was very, I don't want to say haphazard, but it was just looser, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then as far as the homeschooling, I do try to get a week of Tapestry of Grace ready at a time. And everything else is workbooks and things that, again, they go from here to here to here, and they just work through the next thing. And they know every single day is pretty much the same thing. Tapestry happens in the afternoon, and all of their kind of seat work is in the morning time. So it's a real simple plan. And then I've also started using a traveler's journal, which is basically bullet journaling. And I am simply writing down what we've done, because writing down what I'm going to do, so if I write down what I've done, I am way more productive.
And instead of, putting down, and sometimes even our to-do lists can become like that, because we say, okay, I'm going to write down, I made my to-do list, but then I'm also going to add the things that I actually did so I can check them off. Just start with that. Let's see, so what kind of things are in your routine? So the things that run on autopilot, what are those things? Laundry, I'm assuming, is probably one of them.
Laundry has a system. A lot of things have a system. Laundry has a system. So Monday and Thursday is my day, and Tuesday and Friday is my son's, and Wednesday and Saturday is my daughter's. And when you do the laundry, you have at least one load of clothes and one load of towels is what I require. And so that's on a system. Getting up in the morning, we get up, we have morning routine, which is, basically just 3 chores. Make sure that you make your bed, you get dressed, and you brush your teeth. And then, the next thing is breakfast, and then the next thing is school. And it just kind of goes down the list. And like I said, there's a lot of things like table chores are on a system. And those I have charts on, like the refrigerator, so that it's in plain sight. Everybody can see this is how we do it. And when I call table chores, you have no excuse to tell me you don't know what you're supposed to do, because we've done it for years. And every now and then I do change up who does certain things, because kids get older and they're capable of more. I'm also seeing where I've got a child who's getting ready to age out of some things, and he's not going to be as available to me as he once was. So I'm going to have to pull some people in and take over the slack.
Yeah, I remember my mom lamenting that same transition when I left. I'm the oldest, so. Yep. So I know we have our outline points, but real quick, there are a couple of questions here that people are asking. How do you group your kids for instruction time? So I'm sure you're not teaching every single child everything individually. So how do you group them together? And let's see, there's a similar one. Parenting big kids about to launch with littles, and kind of balancing that. That's kind of 2 different modes.
Yeah, it's a learning curve for sure too. I have natural sections of kids. There is an almost 4-year gap between what I call my big kids and my middle kids. And then there's a gap there between my middle kids and my small kids, because we lost a daughter 8 years ago. And so there's some natural gaps there. So I have my bigs, my middles, and my littles. And I always start with my littles, because they're the ones who, they get in the most trouble during school hours, And so I start at the bottom, and I get my big kids started with their individual work, which is pretty autopilot for them. My 2 oldest don't require much from me at all anymore. My middles still require some instruction, but they have some things like handwriting. They have some copy work and things like that they can do without me. So they start there. And I start with the little guys. And I've said this on the blog a million times. It does not take as long as you think it does to teach little people. It takes like 30 minutes. That's it. And so, we get it done pretty quickly. I'm working with those 2 little guys. I do have a toddler and a baby who are kind of running around at the time. And sometimes my oldest will go kind of corral them and help them. But I do their phonics, and they have some handwriting and they have some math, and we'll work through that. And then they're free to go play. If it's a nice day, they go outside. And then I work my way up to the middles. And then in the afternoon, we are all together for like our liberal arts stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those little ones that are, around half an hour a day, those are like 6, how old?
5 and 7.
5 and 7. Yep. That's what we do. We do too.
Yeah. And my middles are 10 and 11. And then my bigs are 15 and 18.
Okay. Yeah. So, we even until you're about 8, it's really, you need to do a little phonics and probably a little math, but I'm not even every day for those, very early years. It's more if they are very resistant or really stubborn or something. It's better at those younger ages to have them on board when you're doing that work, rather than pushing them too hard or turning it into a fight at that age. I try to, we want school to be this thing that we do together, and really pay attention to that atmosphere and dynamic that we're having together. And if that starts getting off, it's better to just not do it than get into a habit of fighting over it in the morning.
Yeah, I want my kids to love learning, and I want them to see it as a lifelong thing. And so, there's lots of toys, lots of hands-on things that they can be doing. They can just be outside exploring, and you're doing science. And I want them to be, just love learning. And I have a funny story. Years ago, somebody asked my kids, they were all pretty little at the time, when we did school, and they said, "Oh, we don't do school." And I was mortified, but I realized that they didn't see anything we did at school. They thought it was just part of their life. So I was kind of a pat on the back, but at the same time I thought, oh, don't tell people that.
It's a success, and it's also not what you want them telling the grocery store clerk or something. Okay, do I understand you? Are you really only doing 30 minutes a day with your 5 and 7-year-olds?
Yes. I know, I said nobody believes me, but yes, that is all it takes. I promise you. The rest of the time is exploring outside. We're talking about things. We're reading books. I don't count read alouds as schoolwork. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking 30 minutes seat work. That's it. And I think that's all those little people can handle, especially I have a lot of little boys. That's all they can manage is 30 minutes. And the mm-hmm. rest of the time is have those hands-on things around, give them opportunities to play and do creative play, and you will be surprised at how much they're learning through that. But 30 minutes of seat work is all they need.
Yep, I agree. That's what we've done too. So, and I mean, because we still do a morning time that's like an all-together family singing and memory work time. That they're in with that, but that's not. That's partly life, and they don't really see that as school. And then, read alouds, it's not counting that really. And are your 7, they're in with your Tapestry of Grace afternoon time, maybe kind of?
They're in and out because some of it's too old for them. But they're in and out. They're listening. Exactly.
They're at that age, they're picking up a lot just by being around all this other activity that's going on.
Yeah.
All right. And what about routines when you have all littles? How has that changed over the years? It's not on your voyage, different stages of your voyage.
One big thing that changed was cleaning wise. We did little tiny pieces every day of the cleaning because that's all I could manage with only little people around. And so on Mondays I would dust, and on Tuesdays I do all the floors. And nothing was ever clean at the same time, but it was at least clean. And so that was one thing that we did that before school too. That was when we had, so it was after the morning chores before school, because I wanted to kind of start with as clean a slate as I could manage. And routines are important, and they're actually easier when you have all littles because you don't have any other like teenagers who have their own agenda. You don't have to worry about that. Everybody has to follow your lead. And so it's actually way easier. And everything was lunch is at this time, snack is at this time. We had rest time. There were all of these components to the routine that really just drove the day. And it was much easier when I just had littles. And so you kind of just have to see if you look at what the natural rhythm to your day is and start fitting that together, you'll actually find that you almost always have some sort of natural routine that you gravitate towards. So use that to your advantage and start plugging in things in an order that makes sense for you. And I think you'll find that your days pretty much follow a certain pattern.
Mm-hmm. And when you can tie those pieces that you want in your day to something that's already happening, like chores come after breakfast and a read aloud comes after lunch or something, that can help just make them happen and turn them into a routine where it doesn't have to be a strict time thing, but it's just first we do this, then we do that. And you just kind of slowly build those things in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in planning, a category that kind of has been a category I've been thinking it lately is the difference between planning reactively versus responsively. A lot of times, I like to read productivity type articles or books or that kind of thing. And so, being reactive is bad. And so the opposite of reactive is supposedly being proactive. Like you set the agenda and you make the decisions and then you go get it, you go make it happen. And I naturally am very drawn to that kind of mode, and that but it often just doesn't really work with a bunch of kids, because my job isn't really to make certain things happen so much as to serve the needs that are in front of me with my kids. So in seeing it not being reactive versus proactive, but reactive versus responsive has been a really helpful shift that I'm in the process of making. I wonder if you have found similar things or how you've seen that kind of play out in your own experience.
Yeah, when you sent me those notes, I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but a lot of times we talk about how we're just killing snakes or we're putting out fires. And that's life with a toddler a lot of times is like that. I have a 3-year-old who he's always doing something, always into something. So I feel like I'm always just one thing to the next, one thing to the next. And sometimes that is your life. Sometimes you do just have to put out fires. There are going to be fires that you don't catch before they get started. And you just have to take care of it. But I think that I do like the idea of the responsiveness. I think that makes you more present in your life. If you are available to your kids and you have that routine, you know what to jump back into. You have plenty of margin built in so that you can address needs as they arise, because they are going to arise. Somebody is going to need water. Somebody is going to need a diaper change. Those, as long as you have margin in your day, you can address those without being frustrated. I think if you're trying to build this tight schedule, you are going to end up extremely reactive because nothing fits into your tight schedule the way that it should, and you just end up volatile and tired and running from one thing to the next and discouraged because your schedule never seems to work. So that's why I'm really big on the flexible routine, especially for moms of many or moms with lots of littles. It's just your day is going to be a lot of fires and you need to be present. You need to be there for your kids as much as possible so that you do catch as many problems before they start as you possibly can.
Yeah. I think sometimes when we start making a plan or moving towards like, oh, I should have a better plan or figure out some routines and start some more structure, I think it's really easy to just assume that a plan and that structure is exerting control in a way that we actually don't have. Saying, if I just have the right routine or if I just make the right plan, then everything will go the way I want it to go.
Right.
And that's just not the kind of control that we're given in this life. That's God decides what our situation, he sends us the needs in front of us and he puts us in the situations that he wants us to be in. And our job is to then do the next thing, do the right next thing. And so we can plan and set up routines in a way that makes us be able to do that better. But that's not exerting our agenda over everyone.
Yeah. And I think too, if you find yourself hiding from your kids a lot, and I've been there, you're hanging out in the bedroom, you're taking lots of bathroom breaks, you're in the garage, you're outside, you're just hiding from them a lot. If you find yourself, disengaged like that, because it is frustrating and you feel like you are just putting out fires and you feel like, oh, I just need a break. I tell people that it's a really good idea to re-engage with some simple fun things. Don't re-engage with this horrendous schedule that, has everybody packed in like sardines during their day. Start engaging with a read aloud. Engage with a walk. Even if you walk in your backyard, you don't have to take a big nature walk somewhere. Take the kids outside. Simple, fun things that kind of engage you back in your family, and just take it slow. It's, again, don't be killing snakes with your schedule and your routine either. It's okay to put the pieces together slowly.
Yeah. And I found too, when I was putting together a routine and schedule and then, posting it up where everyone can see it, and then, inevitably I'd get resistance from the kids, especially as I started getting a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, just the resistance started building, and it became it could get volatile very quickly.
People who can read.
People who can read. People who, as you said before, get their own ideas or their own agendas. And so what have you found some ways to kind of maybe engage the kids, especially those middle-aged kids or older teens, in getting them engaged in the routine and plan, and kind of making that dynamic work for you instead of against you?
Yeah, I'll be honest. The routine is not posted anywhere in our house. It is mine. I have it in my folder. It is with my stuff. It's not posted anywhere where they can see it. So it just kind of happens to them. But it has been that way for so long that they know, this comes next and this comes next. So what I've done with the older kids is that I feel like everybody needs a time frame when their day sort of shuts off. Mm-hmm. And, when dad goes to work, he has a time when work ends. And I know that's hard for moms. We tend to just keep working from sun up to sundown. But I think it's important for us too. But with my older kids, 4 o'clock, and with everybody actually, 4 o'clock is kind of the time frame where if we haven't gotten all the school done, it'll wait till tomorrow. It'll wait till next week. So everything business-wise shuts down for the day at 4. Sometimes they'll watch a movie. My older kids will do computer things that they need to be doing. So that's kind of, they know that once 4 o'clock hits, they're going to get a break. Yeah. And we still have, evening chores at night and things like that. But really, that's the end of their day. And we've tried to really, keep to that and let them have that time where it's just theirs.
Mm-hmm. That was one thing I realized when my oldest was around 10, I think, and I didn't have that routine posted anywhere. It was in my mind, and or in my planner or wherever. He didn't know what it was, and I realized he thought, he had no idea when he might get play. Like, what he wanted was playtime, and he wasn't sure whether or not he was going to get it. So he was always fighting for it or wanting it or asking for it. And when I laid out, okay, these hours are for school, and then there's a lunch break, and then if you didn't finish anything, this time is more school time to finish that, or it's playtime, and then there's playtime. So, just showing him that there are enough hours in the day for school and play. And I do have time set aside here for you to do whatever. It's not actually school all day. Do you see when that school bus stops in front of our house? They're in school all day. You are not.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we do let our kids in on the planning process to an extent, especially the older ones. My son is really great about coming to me and saying, okay, do you need something? I'm getting ready to do this. And, is there anything you need before I do that? I really, really appreciate that. But I also think it's extremely important to say, you know what, at 4 o'clock, that's your time to do what you need to do. Instead of making it some vague, number. I think in that case, I do think times are important, that you give them an end point.
Yeah. Gives them a little hope.
Yes. We all need hope.
Well, and I found a couple years ago, we kind of change up our who has what chores in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so for my older two, I would say, okay, I have these chores that I would like to be done daily, and you can do any of them, so they had a choice, a small number, like there are 3 or 4 things that need to be done. One of these is going to be your daily chore. And because they had a choice and got to pick which one, then they felt a lot more ownership over it and a lot less resentful over it, it seemed. It was more like a team effort sort of thing going on instead of just me going into dictator mode.
Yeah. It's good ownership and responsibility for things.
Yeah. Let's see. There are quite a few questions here. Any tips for getting a 13-year-old on board with a routine? He doesn't have a sense of time.
Well, the good thing about a routine is it doesn't need a sense of time necessarily. Boy, I don't know. It was just part of how our household ran. And so Mom does have to kind of do the moving, here's the next thing we're going to do. But I don't know. I'm really big on, having a conversation with your kids and being candid with them about, this is how I'd really like to see the day run. I think it would run smoother. I think we would have, more time to do other things if we could, kind of make this routine work. And at 13, I don't know, did they say it was a boy?
Yeah.
Okay, because at 13, boys are like trying to figure out if they're men or if they're boys. And they tend to be a little on the bossy side and tend to get a little sassy at that age because they're not sure where they fit into the family dynamic anymore. So you kind of have to be cognizant of that and give them some bigger responsibilities. In fact, you can even give them the responsibility of kind of managing part of the routine. Even if he's not good with time, let him kind of manage the lunchtime frame or, the guided play or whatever, let him manage something and give him some more responsibilities because that's what he's looking for. He is looking to manage something. And he may be kind of bucking the system and not wanting you to manage, his entire day. And so if you give him a little bit of leeway there, I think you'll see a lot better results.
Yeah, that was a shift I've in the process of making too, as my oldest are in that age range. And I was seeing I was interpreting what they were doing as kind of being defiant or maybe even not really rebellious, but defiant or resistant to what I wanted to do, and like thinking of it like an obedience issue or something. And then I realized, wait a sec, he's past 10 years old. Now he's 12, and he just needs some more ownership. He needs to have a little more independence. I need to show him how to have an independent voice in a respectful way. So just like, you have a 3-year-old and you have to teach them how to ask for something politely without whining. And it takes a long time. Those kind of adolescent years, they just have to learn to assert independence respectfully.
Yeah,
but they need it.
I was very thankful that I had an older woman who told me this long before we hit that stage. She had a son who was going through it, and it was revolutionary to me because when we hit that stage, I was like, oh, I know where I am. I already had the map. And so it went a lot smoother than it could have.
Mm-hmm. It's good to have those older women. So then, thank you for being that for us right now. Let's see, how do you get everyone on board and going in the morning? So you have to start that routine. Do people get up at the same time? Do they have to have things done? Like, how does that morning? The morning really sets the tone for the day a lot of the time.
It does. We are not morning people. We're very slow in the morning, and that's just something that we've been okay with. My husband is also the same way. We just kind of slowly get up. We do DIY breakfast station loosely, which is they have the ability to get their own breakfast. There's granola bars, there's cereal, there's a lot of them now know how to make eggs, or they ask an older sibling to make an egg for them. So it's the morning hours until we start school are very slow. And I do try to get everybody up around the same time and get everybody going. But I do remind about the morning chores and things like that. But I'm not a real dictator in the morning. It's just not my personality. So we take our time. And like I said, they get their own breakfast. So that's the reason for that, is that as a homeschool mom, I'm feeding them 3 times a day meals plus snacks. And I needed to have something that wasn't me in the kitchen, cooking. And so breakfast was it, because my husband's not a big breakfast eater. There again, we're not morning people. So it worked out really well for us to make breakfast more of a on your own kind of concept.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really easy for, to read other people's schedules or try to figure out, if you're trying to figure out routine stuff, then the morning people, and I am a morning person, but the morning people have the loudest voice in the conversation, and they are generally really try to get you on board with doing that. And if it's not the way your energy flows, or you're working with your personality and just the temperament of the house, then you don't have to fight it. There are ways you can work with what you have.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because those of us who aren't on that schedule, we tend to feel very guilty because we didn't follow it exactly the way they said it. Oh, and the Proverbs 31 woman, she was up before the light. And, what am I going to do? And you feel lazy and guilty. And really what you need to look at is your day as a whole. Are you being idle? That's the real issue here. Not what time you got up, what time you started school, none of that. And I hit my stride in the afternoon. And most of my kids do as well, my husband as well. So if I tried to make us all morning people, first of all, it would drive my husband crazy. And it would make us all, kind of resentful at each other.
Yeah, on edge.
And so we really have to work with who we are, who God made us to be. And he didn't make every single family cookie cutters. And so we really do need to honor that. Don't be idle, don't be lazy, but do work within, who your family is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a morning person, but then that afternoon time is not productive for me. So I can get up and get moving, but then after lunch, it's like, okay, I'm off. Done. I'm done for the day. Oh, there's still a lot of hours in this day.
Wow.
So how do you handle times where you can't run the house like you'd like, whether it's like illness or pregnancy? How do you flex your expectations?
Oh, it's been a process for sure. Now that I have older kids, they run the routine as best they can. I'm just coming out of that time, which most of you know. I've done this 10 times. You would think I would have some, awe-inspiring thing to say, but honestly, it's paper plates, it's easy lunches, it's simple, simple, simple. And again, trying to not feel guilty for taking things down to the lowest common denominator. School is what I can manage. We school year round so that I do have the option to take off when I need to take off, when I'm just not feeling well. So I've built all of that into our lives to make it as easy as possible. But it really, you do just kind of have to find an abnormal schedule, an abnormal routine. This is what we do now. And when you can go back to normal, try not to live there, but when you can go back to normal, ease back in to it, but really just take things down to the lowest common denominator. And if all you can manage is books on tape with your little kids or an educational video, and you manage to feed them chicken nuggets and tater tots, they're going to survive that time frame, and they're still going to be fed, and it's going to be okay. It really needs to just be, lowering of expectations. I had a friend who used to say I was having a bad day until I lowered my expectations, and I kind of see things like that. You're going to have a bad day if you've got your expectations up here and you just can't do it. And so really try to bring things down to a level that you can manage with how you're feeling during that time frame.
Mm-hmm. We did a lot of audiobooks when I was pregnant the last couple. Because my oldest were under 10. And so that could count as school, an audiobook in the afternoon. We did some singing and memory work together with me on the couch or whatever, and audiobooks, and called it a day. Maybe sometimes, every once in a while, we did math. And they're all doing fine now. It didn't put them behind at all.
Nope. We do fear that, but really, it's not really.
It's not going to put them back.
No.
Yep. All right. How about adding rest into our plan? Can you tell us about experiences that you've had with and without? And
well, as mothers, we tend to, like I say, go and go and go from sun up to sundown. We hate to just take a break. And I think sometimes too, we tend to take our breaks on like Facebook or blog or something like that, where it's not really rest. We're still working. We're still, engaging our brain, and sometimes it's not even, fruitful things we're engaging our brain in. I have had seasons where we have had mandatory rest time, and that's been really nice. I have had seasons where I have not taken that rest time, and I do see where I burn out quicker. I also feel like, where I said before, with having margin in your routine, that flexible with a lot of extra built into it, you can, like right now, I'm at a place where I need to take little breaks throughout the day. I can clean, and then I need to sit down, and I can do some read alouds, but then I need to take a little bit of a break. And so rather than rest time right now, like a designated, this is an hour of rest, we are actually I'm just really taking on that margin and taking that time to just sit and take a break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is an important point. If we probably have natural break points or breaks that we're taking, so are we doing something with that time that's actually going to refresh us and let us come back to life, or back to our real life, with more energy and more attention? Or is it, I often turn to the computer and reading something, checking things there, and then it's mentally agitating, and I come back to real life and turn my attention back to my kids, and I'm in an agitated mode. I'm like, no, I need to find something to calm down, and so I can go back into life ready to pay attention.
I'm not sure what that is about the online world that does tend to agitate us. I'm not sure what that is, but it is very true that, you can be doing something on the computer and you're just staring at that screen, and some little person comes in and interrupts, and you feel why are you interrupting me? And so you're obviously not rested. And so it really needs to be something else. And maybe it's just turning on some music or reading a couple of chapters in a book. For some reason, we are able to shut our brains off easier with a book. We're able to, transition easier with something like that. And sometimes you do need a nap. And I found, the shorter naps are better. But it is really nice to have that rest. I think, again, this is where having a stopping time for your day is good. That gives you some time to rest. For us, the slower morning is, our way of waking up a little more rested and calm.
Mm-hmm. Another one I've been doing lately is there's a street just right in front of our street. It's probably about a quarter of a block. And so I'll just go walk up that street and back down. And the kids are within calling distance the whole time I'm there, but I get a little outside fresh air, break, movement, and I can come back into the house all feeling better. And it, it took like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Finding those little kind of things you can do.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. I know there are some more questions here. We are also slow morning people, Stephanie says. However, 2 days a week I teach piano in the afternoon, so I get stressed out on those days. Any advice?
Depending on the age of your kids, you actually could manage to school 3 days a week and perfectly fine. And a lot of times what I find is if you have older kids, they can do things independently that don't require you. If you have the younger kids, you can do them 3 days a week and let the older kids, continue the 5 days a week, where you don't have to be so focused during that time. It really, like I said, we school year round on a 4-day-a-week schedule. And there are some weeks where we only get 3 days in. And again, not detrimental at all, especially with little people.
And do you feel behind when you only get 3 days a week?
No, I actually don't, because everything seems to work out just fine. We're still, they're retaining it, and they're doing fine.
Yep, I feel the same way when that happens. But I get a lot of questions because we school year round too, and I'll get emails and but we were sick for 2 days, so should that cut into our break week or whatever, or should we make it up? And I was like, no, just roll with it. You'll be fine. It'll all even out.
Yeah.
Let's see, this one. How do you help or encourage your kids to prepare for life after homeschool?
Well, for us, we have moved a lot. We've traveled a lot. My husband has a job that allows the kids to be out amongst the public a lot, helping with things and speaking with other adults. That is one huge thing, is teaching your children to interact with adults, and because they're not going to be children forever, and they need to understand the give and take of a conversation, and they need to understand how to listen and how to ask questions that are relevant to what the person is talking about. Again, that love of learning, that's huge, because basically they can learn just about anything they're going to need to learn in their adult life. We've got Google, Google just about anything. Anything they're going to really need, they need to know how to get that information. And so really it's just a matter of teaching some life skills, changing a tire and charging a battery and how to cook a meal and those kinds of things, going to the grocery store, budgeting, those life things, and then also teaching them some social skills that that will just help them tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the educational stuff that they're really going to need. It's the life skills, the people skills.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's see. What do you think of outside activities? Awana, 4-H, co-op. How have you made those decisions?
Over the years it's changed, but we don't do a lot of outside activities because there's just so many of us. It's like herding cats, and I would be a crazy woman if I tried to do every single thing that's out there. I try to look at things as, can we do this as a family? Is this kind of a family-friendly opportunity? Things like Scouts and 4-H and Awana, those tend to be fairly family-friendly because you can do a lot of those things with several of your children. You can be involved, and so that's kind of how we've made those decisions. But we also look at things such as, is this a life long lasting merit kind of thing. Are you going to learn skills that you can use throughout the rest of your life? And there's just certain things in our lives that we've chosen to just keep out of our lives because they're not going to benefit our kids in the long run, and they're just going to make us crazy while we're trying to do all of these things.
How about appointments like dental or doctor, speech therapy? So how do you work that in?
It's good if you can get all of those on one day, and then make that your day that you don't school, because a lot of times it ends up a lost day. And when you have older kids, you can have them take the kids to the
Ooh, nice.
But I'm still so hands-on. It's like, no, I can't do that. I have to take them. But we try to make them, at a convenient time. Just try not to have them all week long, because then you really aren't going to get anything done. If you have a long travel time, have them bring some things along with them to work on in the car, and things like that. But I would really encourage you to try to get them as, kind of have an appointment day, if you will, and try to keep them within those boundaries.
All right. Well, I think we've covered our points and answered people's questions. So thank you everyone so much for joining us. Was there anything else, Amy, that you wanted to share with everyone before we wrap it up?
No, I think that was everything. I really enjoyed it, Misty.
This was great. You had a lot of focusing things, point of view to share. So thank you for hopping on and spending this time with us. It's always good to hear from people who have so much experience, especially with older kids, because my oldest is almost 13. So we're almost to the teen years, and I can see things starting to shift a lot.
Yeah, a big transition point, that definitely. So yeah, it's been a different world.
All right, well, you can find Amy at raisingarrows.net, and you can find me at simplifiedorganization.com. And the replay will be sent out automatically in about an hour, so you can come back and watch it all over again and glean what you can. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you.